Can a small apartment feel big? I think so. I'm moving into a 28 square meter apartment and I'm designing it to both feel practical and beautiful. Here's how I'm doing it. So this is the layout of the new apartment before I started to move. Here with the kitchen, bathroom and the living room slash bedroom. And so I went into my old apartment model and I copied the furniture that I will be taking with me, like the kitchen shelves and the workstation. And I did some iterations until finally arriving at this solution here. So to begin with, this is what I will be furnishing towards. And lots of this furniture I don't yet have, like the couch or the seating here, and also this bed situation I will have to build because I want the bedroom to also double up as a living room. This is my previous apartment on the 31st of January, just as I began to move and clean out. And here is the new space, in my opinion, looking quite sad at this point. However, I do have some tricks up my sleeve and some ideas in my mind, so I think it will be quite nice actually. One of the first things I end up doing whenever I enter a new small apartment seems to be to take down and out all the boxes and the closets, because I find they just kill the atmosphere and eat up all the space. This is the point at which I realized that the carpenter who had improved the wall on the left had added new sheets to the wall and worked them around the cabinet, gluing the cabinet to the wall. Which meant that I exposed a gap in the wall that I now had to fill. In the meantime, my friend helped me out by painting one of the walls in the living room to bring some warmth. To wrap up the day, I addressed the sorry state of this countertop. It had been cut by a handsaw and I knew that I wanted to add an extension to it later, so I wanted to make sure that it would join properly to the existing part. Going back to the previous apartment, these kitchen shelves I made out of black walnut and maple, and when I ordered this stack of maple I thought it would be very, very light or even white in color, but it wasn't, so it laid around my shop for a long time until I decided to use them for myself. And the extension of the kitchen countertop that you will see me step onto right now is something I made as I moved into this apartment in order to have a place to dine. And here you'll see me do exactly that. I thought there was still one screw remaining, and these things tend to get stuck to the wall, to the paint. So I knocked it and it surprised me by falling down. Alright, let's go. This is my lovely neighbor coming over to help me move my workstation. And this is my roommate who, moving to her own place, is the reason I'm downscaling. And this workstation is something I'm excited to keep improving on and to introduce you all to. It is essentially a narrow cabinet that houses my computer and the screen, and it closes to completely hide them. One of the great things about these shelves is that they are so highly customizable. Moving them from one apartment to a completely different one, I was able to reuse them by only cutting two of them down by 10 centimeters. Having had a fixed bed in my previous apartment, I brought over these two frames that had been lying around my workshop for a while. They were 20 centimeters larger than my mattress, so I decided immediately to cut them down in order not to waste the precious 20 centimeters of width. because I knew that would drive me absolutely crazy. I was not really prepared to do this work, and it seemed kind of crazy to begin this while I'm moving. But I was committed to get the job done as quickly as possible with whatever tools I had on hand. One thing I've learned about staples and brads is that if you wiggle them back and forth, they will break below the surface. Not having the correct size drill bit, I committed the deadly sin of driving screws into end grain MDF. So to mitigate the problems with this, I also reinforced it by adding some screws from the side. The next day, the 1st of February, was spent mainly moving all the stuff over and cleaning out the old apartment. However, at around 6 p.m. I decided that I'm gonna go for it and try to get this countertop done, because I found that it would significantly improve my conditions here. Likely I could have spent a long time designing the exact shape of it, but I was more eager to get things done. So I utilized this piece of beach countertop I had lying around and tried to make the most out of its existing size. Here I'm cutting out the notch that will seat around the trim on the corner of the wall. The work I'm doing here is not high precision. Even the transferring of the shape onto the template was just eyeballing it. One thing I want to point out is that when using power tools or sharp tools, it is never a good idea to be rushing. Just the whole concept of rushing at the workshop is just a bad idea, so please do not follow in my example. It is not something I'm very proud of. This blank, having been used for something else earlier, already had a round over on it, so in this case I just continued with the same round over, not to mess about trying to change it. Also, I do encourage you to not blindly copy me and to know what you're doing if you're using power tools. For instance, in this case I'm doing a climb cut, which inherently can be dangerous, so you should know what forces are involved before attempting such things. Couple of hours later, at around 8 p.m., having rushed through making that countertop, as the oil was drying, in classic fashion I thought I can do more. And so I decided to solve the clothes situation by making a clothes rack. Again, using an offcut of pine from a project I've done previously, I went ahead and winged the support for the clothes rack, which you see me making right now. The hole on the side is to accept the rod that the clothes hangers will hang on, and the holes that I'm drilling here are for attaching the entire structure to the ceiling. Ideally I would have made this out of plywood, because plywood is strong in all directions. However, I didn't have any suitable dimensions and I didn't want to wait for the glue to set if I were to glue two pieces together in thickness. So having used this solid pine, I had to reinforce it in order for it not to split due to the weight of the clothes on it. And I did this by embedding a screw inside of these side supports and making sure that they go at least as far as the point of possible fracture, which is at the lowest point of the hole which accepts the rod. I did not think this fully through when I began, so it was slightly tricky to make sure that the screw goes straight and as deep as necessary, but not all the way through the piece, making it visible and unsightly. In order to ensure that I do not split anything, I chose to hand tighten it at the end, just to have full control of what I'm doing. I did not happen to have any round bar in proper dimension lying around, so I had to create that as well. And I did so by splitting down a piece of construction grade spruce and then rounding it off on all four sides of the router table. And here are some end results. For sure I could have spent more time styling and tidying this place up for you, but this is the place I live, it's my home, and so take it for what it is. And be sure to tune in for future installments of Golea Living Large in a Tiny Space. Here is the clothes hanging rack that you just saw me make, and also a curtain rod that I went down and made a couple of days later. I find it handy to be able to separate the rooms, also now while my friend is still living with me for a few weeks. And here is the general vibe of the bedroom slash living room. Also, all these lamps that you see here are products that I make, or better said, prototypes in this case. And if you're interested in learning more, you can go to my webpage at wayofwood.no.